right, another session. Another session. So, here we are. I'll zoom in. And I'll zoom in again. Boom. All right. I've worked a bit more on this area here, and I think I gave some other areas a bit more of a do, a little bit more of a run for their money. This piece is coming along. It's looking pretty good in my opinion. I kind of like it. Don't love it yet, but I kind of like it. It's got some areas that I'm going to have to fix, and I'm saying this word fix reluctantly because I don't exactly think that we're fixing anything. But in my mind, in my eye's mind, it's not quite perfect. And I want it to be perfect as I can make it. Perfect as I can make it. So, one of the things I'm going to do is fix this little doohickey here. That sounds like a good way to start, and I'm going to do that. Mission accomplished. Yeah. Preemptively. Yeah, okay. I like it. And I have the same problem with this line right up in there. Can you see that? Yeah. Whoosh. And that happened when I was drawing very rapidly. And I will do something a little later. I'm not really ready to do anything right this moment. I noticed that in the other videos that I made, there was sometimes some little bits of dust or lint that had fallen on the piece. I like to clean it off every now and then with canned air. A little brush will do as well, but I like canned air because I don't want to touch I don't like touching the paper very much. A lot of oil in my hand, even though I do wash them. Corona time. I like clean hands. All right. That was bothering me, and now it no longer bothers me. There is something over here I'd like to work on. And it's this area. It's a little darker on this side. So I will give it a once over. I am not pressing down very much at all. The pressure really comes from the weight of the pen itself. A little bit more pressure than that, I guess, but not much. In a way, I'm biding my time before I get into it properly. These are important steps to take to finishing your drawing, of course. Every little go over is important. However, I'm not making significant changes, things that probably nobody would notice, even myself, unless you had something side by side. But cleaning up areas that are a little, how should I say, a little rough is a good idea when you first go into a drawing. When I first go into a drawing, it's a good idea for me. What's a good idea for you? Don't know. But if you're interested, this is what I do. So right now I'm just going over again some area that I had previously worked on. Layering is what's happening here. You are layering the ink. Yes, you are, if you're following this approach. Yes, I've been here before. This is a re-encounter. So what exactly am I doing here? I'm speaking purely from a technical point of view rather than more of an emotional, like which direction is this drawing going in point of view. But from a purely technical point of view, what actually am I doing? Well, I'm trying to make this area right in here, this area in here. I want to make it more consistent because it's a little darker over here. Now, it doesn't matter if I'm trying to cover a smaller area or a larger area. If you want the area to be consistent, one way to do it after you give it a few passes and you layer it up a bit, because what I'm doing now doesn't really apply at the beginning. It applies more when you're finishing it up. And that is, you're finding the areas where the paper shows through because it's not quite, the ink is not quite opaque. It's still a bit on the translucent side. Still, there's some areas of the paper that's showing through, and that's why it's more of a gray rather than just a pure opaque black or whatever monotone hue that you're using, blue, green, red, whatever it is. It's the same principle when it comes to the oil-based ballpoint pen ink, not the water-based one. Water-based will give you either an on or off, a binary type approach to the ink. This tends to be a softer gradient if you're not pushing too hard, the oil-based. I haven't quite gotten to the point I was making, which is I'm just finding the areas where the white of the paper is showing through, and I'm tapping it, really. Maybe a little bit of a longer tap, but just, tap, tap, tap. Not stippling, that's different. Stippling is when you just see the individual dots themselves, but this is more trying to just get the areas that I can see that are shining through, trying to get them to go away without pressing down and trying to create 100% opaque area. That's easier, even though that you should also layer that as well. It's a good idea to do so. Layering the whole piece takes more time. By layer, I mean going over it once and then going over it again. Yes. It's that again thing. It works for a lot of things, not just drawing, like when you're learning a language or trying to perfect your golf swing. Whatever it is. So it's darker on this side than here, and that could contribute to an effect. It looks like that this area is a rounded area because light doesn't fall on cylindrical areas the same as it does on flat areas. Right. Then you run the risk of overworking it too sometimes. You run the risk of anything when you do a drawing, when you create one. There's always a risk. It's an interesting kind of approach or series of events that come together when you're making a drawing. At the beginning, you don't have a drawing. Then you work on it a bit, whatever medium, painting, drawing, whatever it may be. And you then put marks down on the paper, the canvas. And then there's something You're making it. You're doing it. It now exists, but it's not quite finished. You work on it a little more, and it starts to look like something, and you're starting to be pleased. At some point, you will be pleased, because otherwise you'll just abandon the project completely. So yeah, you're pleased, and then you're not 100% pleased, so you continue working on it, and then sometimes you're completely mortified by what you just did because you were liking the direction it was going, and now it looks like crap, you think. But there's still something there. You think you can save it? You find that you're pleased again, hopefully. All goes according to plan. And this cycle will continue until you find that you're done. And sometimes when you're not pleased with a particular way things are going, you continue working on it, and then it's overworked. And sometimes if you're documenting the process, you'll go back and you look at where you were, and you realize that, hey, actually it wasn't all that bad. And then what happens from that point? Well, I don't know. Maybe you go watch a movie and try and drown your sorrows. Read a book, talk to a friend, rip up the picture. We all have our coping mechanisms. Put it away for a while. That's a good idea, says I. Put it away for a while. Come back later. You do change your mind. Your taste changes. Work on something else. At this point, there are many pictures that I will never revisit. They just will remain unfinished, in limbo, whatever you want to call it. Practice. Many. Hundreds. Thousands. Hundreds. Well, there are thousands of doodles and practice sessions, certainly. But boxes and boxes of them. But of those, there are definitely over 100 that could become something that I would frame. But I will most definitely start a new piece here at some point, like this was started, without thinking that it was going to become something that I would want to frame. I'm still not 100% sure that that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure, though, because I'm liking it now. Might not like it later. I might do something that goes, no, why did I do that? Which is the whole point I'm talking about right now. Yes, sir. It's happened many times. And there would have been somebody to stand next to me and say, I like it. And then there would be somebody to stand next to me when I like something and say, it's not really my favorite piece. Everyone will have their opinion. And that is a good thing, I believe. Okay. So, if there's anything else in this area, which there is, it looks like I'm not quite liking it 100%. The consistency could be better. It just takes a lot of time. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is move away from layering and go, or move away from this area that I've already worked and tackle something new on this piece. Give it a new direction. All right. I looked at this earlier. Let me zoom out a little bit so I can explain the thought process here. I was thinking when I was looking at this earlier that although this line suggests that this area or this area could be darkened in, when I step back a bit and I look at it, I'm thinking that this area is probably better if most of it is kept as white. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this area as white. Or that's the plan. Could change. So I'm going to zoom back in. All right. But I still have these lines in here, and I can make use of these lines. Now there is a very, very faint line that's curves like this, right? So I'm going to work on it. Right. That's almost the exact shape it was. Yeah, it even curls up like that. That's, wow. I'm surprised that that came out as it did. Yeah. Huh. Usually I'm not that lucky. All right. So this part I will fill in. Now let me see if I can do this fairly rapidly. Again, I'm not pushing down hard. Not too hard. A little more than I would have in this area, because I'm thinking ahead of time that it's going to be a little darker. So I'm going towards that. But when in doubt, aim for a lighter approach, meaning not as much pressure on the pen when you're laying down the ink, because you can layer it up. Can't go backwards. That's a suggestion, mind you. Yeah, that went rather quickly. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. So I turned it around so I could start going in this direction rather than this way. I go this way, which is a little better. It's not always the best, but it's most often better. Have more control. Why do I have this line running through? I don't know. It was there, and I decided not to darken it in, and then it remained. And then once something is noticeable by me, and I aim to keep that element in the piece, then I will work towards that. This drawing, along with most of the work that I do, it came about without any previous thought, or very, very little planning at all. In this case, I started out making just making the circles that I usually make with my wrist here, or my entire forearm, or my fingers doing this. All of those I find them for myself acceptable ways of going about it. Depends on the area. If it's really small, I'll just use my fingers. If it's a larger area, I'll use my shoulder and arm. But I approached this with the idea that I'm going to demonstrate laying down the line itself, not the shading part. And then I did that. I laid down the line, and then decided to keep going. That's what happened. That's how this evolved. So what do I want to do with this area right here? I'm going to make that really dark. So in this case, because I know I want it to be very opaque, I can be pretty generous with the pressure. But I'm still layering it. Yeah, I like that. Not enough to stop messing with it, but I like it. Now let's see how this looks from a little bit more of a distance. Okay. Interesting. It looks like something, like representative of some physical thing. Not quite sure what though. Now, as I said before, there's some areas that where the white paper shows through more than I like, and if it was consistently showing through throughout, from here to here to here to here, and it was consistent, then that would be a different story. But it's inconsistent, and the inconsistency is a little sloppy. So that's why I'm going back over it. The problem that could happen, it's not so much a problem here because of this area, we'll forgive it, but I could go darker than I originally had wanted to. But again, because it's not really part of its opacity is it can be really anything. It can be black, and it'll be fine. It's not dependent upon something that's next to it. There's no contrasting between this and another thing. It can just be as it is. Whereas if I were trying to create from complete opacity to transparency and having it a consistent, continuous tone, then there would be a problem there if one was darker than another. But here it sits on its own. Its presence is not contingent upon any other aspect. In fact, as I'm going along, I'm realizing I really am starting to fill it in much more than I originally had anticipated to doing. And there is a difference between the top and the bottom part of this little thing, this little protrusion. Top, bottom. I'm calling this bottom. I'm assuming that's the bottom. It's rare, but there have been times when I've completed a piece and then I've turned it around from what I intended it, and it looks better. But it is rare, because as I'm working on something, there's some thing in my mind that's associating it with a 3D world. There is a top, there is a bottom, there is weight, there's gravity pulling down something and affecting another thing in a different way. So it comes through. I'm drawing. Often. Not always. So now I'm on the bottom part, so-called bottom part, and doing the same thing. Am I going to make it darker? Don't know yet. Depends how it goes. Is it important? Nope. It's only important that I'm happy with it in its finality. Yeah. Yeah. I do wonder if I'm going to come back and see this later and think, I still need to work on it. Probably. Feels like I need to just give it a rest for now, because otherwise I do run the risk of overworking it. Don't want to do that. There you go. Yeah. All right. So then the question is, what do I do with like this? Well, there is this line here, and it's there. It's not not there enough to where I can just ignore it. So I'm going to work on it. Well, let's see. Do I want to? This is a question. Do I want to work on that or not? Do I want to make it more prominent? My gut says no. So I'm going to go with my gut for now. The gut in drawing. Listen to it. So this part is really it, and then after I do that, there's the background I'm going to do. In the background, I hopefully will go faster. Here I am touching the piece, and I told you I don't like to touch it. Yeah, don't use your fingers, buddy. Use the canned air. So now I'm going to work on this area right here. I'm going a little long on this. Usually I try to keep it around half an hour, but I'm going to go longer today. Why? I just want to get this done. I want to move on to the next piece. It's time. Now this is where I am going to layer it a bit. I'm not going to be heavy-handed here. I'm going to go in a lighter fashion. The heavy-handed came at the beginning when I laid down the original lines. So now I'm going to tap, 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 tap. Alright, now there's something I want to do here. I don't like this area. I don't like how it's just kind of flat, dead. So I'm going to do a little like that. And I didn't like that either. So there. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm not liking this at all. No, 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 I'm saying. No, no, no. My left eye has a floater in it. There's a floater in my left eye. So yeah, I've been working on this area a bit, and it looks like the time I've been spending is paying off. I am beginning to understand that this session is nearly over. I'm going to mess about with this area right here. Give it a couple pen strokes. Just like that. Nope, I'm wrong. It's not quite almost over. Because I see this area right here I want to work on. Yeah. Well, I think that the rest of this area I'm going to want to work on off camera. When I return, the plan here so far at this point in time, keeping in mind that this all could change. However, what I anticipate happening, what I assume will happen, what I think I'm going to do is work just a little bit more on this area that I'm messing about with right here, off camera, because it just needs, basically just needs tightening up, really, not just doing more of the same here. There's no real exploration of shapes, I don't think. So composition I think is fine, really. It's a little, that's fine too. I don't know what to do right around in here yet, but it's not. This, I can take it or leave it. I'm not really sure about the ground plane there. I don't want to work it too hard because I do like thin lines and just lines that are more for boundaries. Those are nice. I think I want to do a little something right in here. Let me zoom back in so you can see what I'm talking about. Just this area right here. This line by itself is too weak. There's a lot of conflicting lines around it that are just bold, right? So it just stands on its own, but not in a good way necessarily. This part right in here is much darker overall than anything over here, so I'd like to balance that by darkening some areas in over here. So there's some balance there between the two sides. This I'll do something underneath there, I'm not quite sure. Maybe have it copy like this area here, similar way. All right. Then next session, and maybe the final session, is to put some type of a marking in the back so that this can pop forward. Again, that's the plan. I'm not sure that that's going to be the execution, but that's the plan. That's the plan. Yeah. Now, what we did today is I remember working around here. This was prominent. Darkening this area in. Here, let me zoom in again. I made this area more consistent. I worked a little bit up in there. Filled in, I remember filling in some of this area in here. Worked a lot up in here. And yeah, this was the most prominent area. And I was trying to figure out whether or not I want to make this line a little more prominent. I'm still not quite sure. It looks like this area here needs some work. I'm not 100% happy with this area. Maybe this I'll darken in so that it balances this area over here. See? Yeah. All right. So here we are. session of this launch that I've been working on for. This will be the 5th time. Yeah. All right. So until next time, out.